China has officially banned Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. The lockdown continues. The ban on all cryptocurrency related payments continues. Is now the time to sell your Bitcoin? Or is this the greatest blessing to the entire Bitcoin development? I'm going to talk about whether you should be buying or selling Bitcoin in this episode today, as well as update you on a whole bunch of stuff happening in China. What's really happening there? We hear the host of Mad Money, Jim Cramer, the biggest finance show that everybody listens to. He reportedly sold all of his Bitcoin. Is now the time to sell all your Bitcoin, or is this a giant blessing in disguise? All of that in today's episode. What's up, guys? It's Adam Winnig. If you'd like to stay updated on everything cryptocurrency related each day, then go ahead, like, subscribe, turn on the post notifications. Today, there's a lot to cover. Oh my God, there's a crazy amount of FUD, probably the most amount of FUD that we've ever seen in the markets happening around China banning cryptocurrencies and Mad Money host Jim Cramer selling his Bitcoin. Let's cover what's actually happening. Now, if we just take a look inside of what's happening across the board, Bitcoin down 11%, Ethereum down 13.8%, Binance 25%, ADA down 24%, XRP down 24%, Dogecoin down 26%, Polkadot down 25%. Everything is in the red. Why is this all happening? Well, I'm going to tell you why it's all happening in just a second and explain to you this narrative and give you an interesting perspective on it. And before we do that, though, I'm going to take a look at the charts really quickly. There's not a lot to say about the charts. We saw that we were trying to hold up around this 1.2 area, and we've kind of dipped below it at this point, and everything looks the same. Okay, everything is following this Bitcoin narrative. We see the chart looks exactly the same. There's this kind of area of support, which we'll see how the daily candle closes, but it's not looking pretty, right? Ethereum, the same thing. It looks exactly the same. All the charts look the same, basically. They're all following what's happening in Bitcoin. So what is actually happening? Well, there is a lot of talk around China yesterday, and then even more today as more and more miners get shut down. But it's not just that the miners are getting shut down, but the Agriculture Bank of China bans crypto and digital. Basically, the Agriculture Bank of China, which is the third largest bank in all of Asia, bans crypto, meaning that people that have their money in this bank can no longer send it to exchanges or brokers in anything crypto related. So they're trying to cut off the on-ramp to people getting outside of the Chinese yuan into crypto. And at the same time, the digital yuan, which we know has been in development and is now released, which is available at more than 3,000 ATMs in Beijing. So why is this actually happening? Well, as you know, it's pretty clear that China wants control. They're a communist party. They want control, and Bitcoin is anything but control. So this is happening. But then also at the same time, the People's Bank of China orders banks to stop providing services to crypto OTC, right? Over-the-counter crypto services, which I kind of talked about in the last article. But this is really interesting because when you really look at what China wants, right? China wants complete control, and their digital yuan, it basically allows them to track literally everything that's happening. It's completely programmable, it's completely traceable, and so something like Bitcoin is something that obviously the Chinese can't control, and they want control over, and that's not going to happen with Bitcoin. And so that is why China is cracking down on Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies as a whole. Okay, now let me explain why this actually might be a giant blessing in disguise, and then we'll get into whether you should be buying or selling your Bitcoin at this point. So billionaire Mike Novogratz says Xi Jinping's authoritarianism, he's the president of the People's Bank of China, Xi Jinping's authoritarianism isn't good for Bitcoin, and China's citizens will find a way around the system, right? And this is totally true, right? They cut off all payments to crypto-related exchanges and whatnot, and Mike Novogratz has to say, he says that Xi is an authoritarian leader who wants control over things. Bitcoin is the opposite. Chinese citizens will find a way to move assets outside of the system, but they are making it harder. We'll take some time to play out. Keep the faith. He also indicated that Bitcoin has more scope in countries that do not have the same kind of regime as China, which, is a vast majority of Western countries. Most countries believe in freedom, he said in a follow-up tweet, at least in the West. It would be politically very unpopular to do what China did. Also, there are tons of very influential holders in the West who are working hard at educating political officials as well as regulators. Okay, so this is the narrative, right? It's China wants control. The digital yuan allows them to have control. They're shutting things down. Okay. China's crackdown means Bitcoin is working, says crypto miner. This was really interesting. His name's Brandon Arvanagi. He's a former security engineer at a crypto exchange called Gemini. And he basically compared China's harsh stance against Bitcoin with the country's ban on Facebook and Google, right? China bans everything that's not free, that they don't have complete control over. They banned Google, they banned Facebook, they banned Reddit, they banned Wikipedia, they banned, literally everything they've banned. And it really hasn't stopped these technologies from growing like in incredible rates, right? So while this is a ton of FUD, I don't think it's going to be able to stop Bitcoin's price. And anyways, so what's happening? So basically all of these miners are being shut down. China's banning cryptocurrencies. Well, that's forcing miners to move elsewhere. And it looks like a lot of these miners are actually going to end up in the US. There's a lot of talks about miners coming to Texas as well as Miami. Miami has cheap nuclear energy and Texas has an abundance of renewable energy. But also at the same time, what's adding on top of this FUD, on top of China, is that Mad Money host Jim Cramer says he sold most of his Bitcoin following the China crackdown. So this was basically, he was saying that he was scared about what was happening with China. He sold all of his crypto, and basically, yeah, this is a huge piece of news because so many stock traders or day traders in the morning, they tune into this guy's show, and I don't know, he could just be a puppet in disguise, but so be it. He gets paid to create excitement and create FUD and fear and greed in the market. That's what he gets paid to do. So, I don't know if you should really be following that guy, but so be it. Okay. So all of this happening, all of this craziness happening, but yet the richest, most successful people in the world are basically coming out every single day. Guys like Paul Tudor Jones, Ray Dalio, the third richest man in Mexico came out and he said that Bitcoin should be in every portfolio, and he's the third richest guy in all of Mexico. So these intelligent people are, coming out and they're saying, you know what, you actually should be in Bitcoin. Now, let me talk about whether you should be in Bitcoin or not, because recently we had the death cross happen, which you've heard us talk about in the past couple episodes of the show, the 50-day and 200-day moving average crossing. Now, should you actually be buying or selling Bitcoin at this point? Well, that depends on your time frame and your investment time frame. But for me personally, it's hard to short the fastest growing adoption rate of any technology of all time in all of history. It's tough for me to short that. If you take a look at total internet users here in this white line, you can see this is how the internet was adopted by users, and you can see it grew. But this is how crypto is being adopted. It's the fastest adoption rate curve of everything, of all technology in all of history, and you can see that it's an 80% average yearly growth. Okay, at this point, we're expected to grow by about 80% per year following this adoption curve, or, this kind of also falls in line with Metcalfe's law, which is really interesting. Now, also, there's talk, I love Kiyosaki because he's so anti the system, right? And I think all Bitcoiners are anti the system, right? But he's basically been tweeting about this, saying that the biggest bubble in world history is getting bigger. Biggest crash in world history is coming. Buying more gold and silver, waiting for Bitcoin to drop to 24K. Crashes are the best time to get rich. Take care, right? So crashes are the best time to get rich. I luckily got into crypto back at like the very, very bottom, at the floor, like around Bitcoin was like, I think it was like $6,000 or $7,000. And, all of this stuff, it doesn't really affect me that much because, all of my principles protected. And, unless Bitcoin crashes below like $6,000 or something like that, then maybe it's something to be concerned of. But what he's referring to in this tweet is the money printing system, right? The printing that's going on, that there's talks of even more stimulus coming in. And that's where the Bitcoin narrative really will take off. So I just want to say one thing. Should you be buying or selling? Obviously, this is not financial advice. Everyone's situation is different. You're welcome to have your own opinion, obviously, about this. But if you look at Bitcoin here from its all-time high, down to here, we've taken about a 56% crash. So like, people had no problem buying Bitcoin at like $60,000 and getting into that. But now Bitcoin's like 56% discounted at this point, and people are having trouble buying Bitcoin. So if you're watching the show and you're not in yet, then it may be a good place to get in. If you have cash on the side, it also may be a good place to get in, right? Because ultimately, even God forbid we do go into a bear market, what's the worst? Maybe you incur another 30% drawdown, right? We expect the bear market to maybe have like 80% drawdown. You expect, you get another 30% drawdown when it comes down that low. If we are going into a bear market, then you dollar cost average in a year or so when we've really hit the bottom floor, or whenever that may be, 2 years from now when we really hit the bottom floor. But I personally don't think that's the situation. Take it for what it is. But anyways, if this video is helpful, if you'd like to stay up to date with all things crypto, then go ahead, like, subscribe, turn on post notifications. Oh yeah, and I just wanted to let you know, if you'd like to get this news before it comes out each day, and also you'd like to get our trade ideas as well as our expert analysis, then you can go on over to blueedgefinancial.com/crypto, sign up for a 7-day free trial, and only pay for it if you feel like it's worth it.